TantrumKnows. Welcome to the University of Life.
The reason for the shutdown really is not complicated. Here in the Senate, we have a 60-vote threshold in order to pass a budget that keeps the government open. You need 60 votes. And that's been the case for a very, very long time. And what has always happened, is that if the majority party, in this case the Republican Party, does not have the 60 votes, which is usually the case, they have to sit down and negotiate with the minority party, which is the Democratic caucus, which has 45 Democrats and 2 independents, one of which is me. That's what you got to do. You have to negotiate to get the 60 votes. But for the first time, in history, the Republicans are saying, we don't want to negotiate. It is our way or the highway. You take it or leave it. And given what the enormous consequences of what is at stake, appropriately, the Democrats are saying, no, you have to sit down and negotiate that.
Affordability crisis. Families are being pounded by the cost of everything, including insurance. So how can we make it more affordable? By the way, I'm a doctor. I practiced in a public hospital for the uninsured for 20 years. Many of my patients were middle income, but they could not afford either the insurance or the health care they were receiving. I know the impact this has on a family budget. But if we're going to solve this, we have to put down the ways that we've kind of become entrenched, just like trench warfare. We're going to win. We're going to make them do the white flag. We're going to continue to take our same tired arguments and fight each other until we wear the one down. Well, the people who are casualties, the collateral damage, if you will, are the American people. We need to have creative thinking, but one in which people are willing to move beyond the way they've ordinarily thought. The enhanced premium tax credit is the latest example. Next year, it'll send, if it's restarted, it'll send $26 billion to insurers to not lower the cost of health care, but to paper over the premium increases that are part of the increased cost of health care. That doesn't make health care cheaper. In fact, if you don't have one of these policies, it could contribute to inflation. And if you're not getting the subsidy, and you're buying individual insurance, your policies are definitely higher.
So what happens when the most powerful government in the world just stops? I'm not talking about a slowdown or a debate. I mean a full, complete stop. Today, we're going to break down the 2025 shutdown and figure out what it really means when the systems we all depend on just switch off. I mean, seriously, can you imagine that? It's like the engine of a massive machine just seizes up. No power, no movement, nothing. That's pretty much what happened to the U.S. government. The big question, of course, is for how long? 39 days. Yeah. As of November 9th, 2025, that number officially made this the longest government shutdown in American history. And look, that isn't just a statistic. That represents weeks, over a month, of real uncertainty and very real consequences for millions of people. Because that's the thing, right? When you see cracks like this appear in Washington, D.C., the tremors are felt everywhere. This shutdown is so much more than a political story. It's a human story. It's about how deeply connected we all are to these massive systems we usually just take for granted. All right, so let's dig into that. Let's trace that chain reaction, because the effects of this shutdown spread out like ripples in a pond, touching lives way, way beyond the Capitol. And it all starts with one simple thing: a missed paycheck. So when you hear government shutdown, your mind probably goes straight to federal workers. And that's fair. But the impact is so much bigger. We're talking about a paycheck ripple that slams local businesses, delays in essential benefits like SNAP, that's the program that helps families put food on the table. And then, of course, there's the major strain on travel, with TSA agents and air traffic controllers working without pay. On top of all that, countless small businesses and private contractors are just left hanging, unpaid. It all adds up to this enormous amount of financial and, psychological stress across the board. And here's that domino effect in action. I mean, just think about it for a second. When hundreds of thousands of people suddenly stop getting paid, they also, they stop spending.
That means the restaurants, the local coffee shops, the small businesses on Main Street, they feel that pain almost immediately. It's a direct hit to local economies all across the country.
And then you get the impacts that you might feel directly. You've got absolutely essential staff like TSA agents and air traffic controllers who are forced to work without pay. The strain on the entire travel system becomes, well, it becomes immense. This leads to flight cancellations, massive delays, and a whole new level of chaos at the airport. So the big question is, how did we even get here? The short answer? Political gridlock in Washington. And to really understand the stalemate, you first have to grasp the sheer number of people it directly affected. 750,000. Just let that number sink in for a moment. That's how many federal employees were furloughed, which is basically a fancy word for being sent home without a job to do or a paycheck to expect. And on top of that, thousands more were deemed essential and forced to work without pay. This isn't some small number, it's the population of a major American city, just cut off. Now, what's really telling and kind of crazy is just how close they came to a temporary solution. The Senate actually voted on a bill to get the paychecks flowing again. It got 53 votes. But, and this is a big but, because of Senate rules, you need a 60-vote supermajority to overcome a filibuster. So the bill failed. It was just 7 votes short. And because of that, 750,000 people were left in limbo. So what broke the bridge here? Well, it came down to a fundamental disagreement. The Democrats argued that any bill to fund the government had to also include funding for healthcare subsidies that were about to expire for 24 million Americans. On the other side, the Republicans insisted that Congress needed to pass a clean funding bill first just to reopen the government, and then they could address other issues. They were on 2 completely different tracks, and neither side was willing to budge. But while that debate was raging in Washington, the reality on the ground for everyday people was getting desperate. So let's shift our focus away from the politics and back to the people to see the true human cost of all this gridlock. This quote from Everett Kelly, who's the head of a major union for federal workers, really just says it all. This was not a vacation for these folks. It was a deepening crisis. With every single day that passed, families were falling further and further behind on rent, on their mortgages, on just basic everyday bills. And this is where it all becomes real. We're talking about a single mom sitting at her kitchen table, staring at a stack of unpaid bills, just wondering how she's going to make it work. Or a veteran who's served their country, now unable to count on that same country for a paycheck. These are the human stories at the very heart of the shutdown. So when you see this level of chaos, it's pretty natural to feel powerless. An event like this is a huge stress test for our institutions and honestly for all of us. It forces us to ask a really critical question. When a system this big can fail, what on earth can we learn from that failure? And here's the core lesson that I think emerges from all this chaos. First, the systems we depend on are way more fragile than they seem. That idea of external stability, a reliable job from a reliable source, is just not guaranteed. True resilience, the kind that helps you weather a storm like this, is built through things like solid financial preparation, being civically aware of what's happening, and strong community support. So what does that resilience look like in practice? It's not some abstract idea. It's about taking real, concrete actions. First, you assess. You have to understand your own financial vulnerabilities. How would an interruption like this affect you? Second, you prepare. That means building a safety net for that instability. And third, you engage. Understanding how our government works and why it sometimes breaks is the very first step to making it better. And that brings us to the final, and maybe the most critical question this whole event leaves us with. The system stopped. It reminded every single one of us just how fragile these big structures can be. So the real question isn't just about what one person will do, but about all of us. What are we going to do to make our system stronger and more resilient? Thanks for watching.